All right, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Talking with Traders. Every month I sit down with a new trader to talk about what got them into this game, what keeps them in it, how they trade. Today I've got a great guest with me, the great and wonderful Julia Cordova. Many of you guys know her from Twitter. She also hosts a great YouTube channel with her market commentary and an occasional interview, which you should definitely watch. They're awesome. And she's really well known for her unique charts. Julia, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Dan. I really appreciate it. Hi, everybody.
It's great to have you on. I've wanted to talk to you for a while on this show because I think you've got just a great deal of experience and just wisdom to share. So let's jump right in.
Okay.
So let's start off. What brought you into trading? How'd you get started in this game?
Oh, gosh. Well, so I actually have an engineering degree. I'm a mech by education. And then I went into software sales. And eventually, just because software sales required so much travel, I wanted to move to Florida. My mother is getting a little bit older, and I wanted to be with her. And so I was looking for something that I could do without having to travel, and something where I could still make a fair amount of money. And it wasn't one of those scams like, make a gajillion dollars working from home. Really? Really? So I was looking for an early version of that was something that I could do with my own money. I could be my own boss. And so that's really how I started. And I was just managing my own 401k. So that was easy back in the day. So I thought, how hard could it be? And so that's sort of uh, what my background is and how I sort of thought to start trading.
When you first started trading, were you more investing or did you go right into trading in and out of positions?
Well, it was investing, but it was sort of rotating through positions. I
Okay.
have to say I was super lucky because I really liked Apple products. So I just kept buying Apple stock all the time. And I was, they say some traders, myself included, I don't diversify as well as a mutual fund or some other traders might do. I try to keep 4 to 6 things in my big account at any one given time. And so I was just sort of heavy on Apple. And so I was mostly an investor. But sometimes when I thought things were getting a little crazy, I might sell it and sort of rotate then into Netflix or something like that. So it was more of an investing strategy, but kind of rolling through the investments, so to speak.
Makes sense. Did you ever trade options or futures, or do you primarily stick to stocks? What kind of class do you stick to?
Well, now I trade everything, although I would still consider myself an options neophyte. I definitely
Me too.
get help from people that follow me. I have very smart people following me, so I'm super lucky that so many great people will help me. But I trade now I trade options, but as a neophyte, I trade futures, which I love because it gives me a lot of flexibility. And then I also trade equities and ETFs.
What's your normal hold time for? Like, how long do you sit in a position?
So I have several different accounts. I have sort of a long term investment account where it's anywhere between a few months to years. Then I have a swing trade account where it's usually a couple of days to weeks to maybe a month or two. And then I have my futures slash scalp account where it's usually between anywhere from even just a couple of minutes to days usually. So
Got it.
that's
Do
about
you
it.
ever go into something as a swing and then it goes really well and you decide to hold it? Like, do you move it to the long term account at that point, or how do you
I
handle
so I am not organized enough to do that. So I
that? Okay.
usually I mean I try to do that, but I can't actually move it. I don't know something. I probably could. I just
You
have
could
to
ache at
ask
it.
all my I have different brokers now for different things, but
Okay.
yeah, sometimes I mean, I was scalping ES once, and I think I held it for like a week, and people are like, "You're still holding that?" I was like, "Well, I mean, it kept going in my direction, so you know." Yeah, it does turn into something sometimes. Sometimes I'm not intending something to be such a big swing, and it happens for
It does
sure.
happen. I'm always curious how other people do that because I get really uncomfortable. Like I also have two accounts, and I'm like, oh, this one should be in this account, and
Yeah,
just feels wrong, right?
right, right. Sometimes I will transfer more money in if I want to keep doing my thing in the scalp account, but not very often. Sometimes I'm like, why would I do that? I'm going to only screw myself up.
Yep,
You know what I mean? I like
I
to
do.
remove money from the accounts, not put more in. I don't want to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how has your trading style evolved over time? Like, what was it when you first got started, and how is it different now?
Oh my gosh. So I remember when I first got started, and Trendspider has a lot of cool features and indicators that you can use. So I remember when I first started, I would try to use as many indicators as possible because I
Yeah,
thought, oh, well, this person says this indicator works and this other indicator is supposed to be really good. So I probably had a dozen or more indicators on my charts. And then I just got really confused because they almost always, when you have the more things you're looking at, the more they contradict each other.
yeah,
So I've actually gotten a lot simpler over time. I've just sort of, I know what things are, I know how they work. Sometimes I will look at some other indicators, but right now, really the only thing I use uh, heavily is price action and RSI. And everything else is sort of just extra if I'm not sure, or if I need another opinion of a technical indicator, I'll definitely rotate some other things in. But I've just gotten really simple, for sure. And people might think that my charts are complicated, but I super don't think they are. They're really just very simple uh, lines, channels, and RSI, and that's it.
I love that, and that's something that I see a lot, right? Like, I talk to traders of all different levels of experience, and the traders who have been around the block a while almost always have cut their indicators down to the bare minimum, right? It's just like one thing on your chart, maybe two.
Right.
But you see a lot of newbies or novices with like 30 different indicators on the chart, and I don't know how you trade that way. It's a lot.
Oh, I don't know. I also had a Mac Daddy setup where I had six screens. I was like a pilot. I had all these screens and I had no idea what I was doing. But I felt really good about it. You know what I mean? Because it looked really good. When people came into my office, they're like, whoa. I was like, yeah. But I wasn't making money until I figured out how to trade with just one screen and a couple of indicators. It's funny. I mean, I have more than that now, but it's almost like just it's funny because you never in a million years would think that less is better. I wouldn't, right? I'm like, pile it on. But yeah, it's the same thing. What do you use? What's your favorite technical indicator?
Me, so I'm a big fan of. I only use really two, right? Anchored VWAP, and I use an RSI with Bollinger Bands over it, right?
Oh, that's nice.
So and that's it. The RSI with Bollinger Bands, to me at least, seems like love your dog. Uh,
This is Jack.
Hi
Jack, say
Jack.
hi to the internet.
So,
Dan and the
but
internet.
when you put Bollinger Bands around RSI, right? Like people say that over 70 is overbought, below 30 is oversold, or 20 and 80, whatever their numbers are. But when you think about momentum having its own volatility, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes the Bollinger Band is much better. So it's kind of like a dynamic level to look at. One of my favorite trades is like divergent lows on an RSI where it's riding the bottom Bollinger Band for a little while.
Okay.
Um,
How long? I mean, how long is a while? Like, what do you?
I want to see it at least touch the divergence line like three times,
Okay,
essentially,
yeah,
right?
that's for me too. If I see 3 points of RSI divergence, I was like, oh, that's
Yeah,
like
like
a
it could
high
happen quickly,
probability.
right? I mean, it can happen very quickly, or it can take a while. Like you never know. And like that old saying, it's something like the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent,
Yes.
right? Well, charts can stay divergent way longer than you can stay solvent too, right? So it's like
Uh, right. Oh, I know. And sometimes, I mean, I've noticed RSI when it looks like it's diverging. Sometimes it's actually forming a bull flag or a
yeah,
bear flag, right? So, I mean, it's funny because yeah, so it's not always it's not the only thing we should look at. And you're right, it can last a really long time, or it can be like this could be a trend change even.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and you won't know until it triggers. So it's always interesting to hear how other people trade. So let's talk about that. I'm just curious. How do you how do you decide how to draw your channels? Because your charts are very unique looking. I know there's, you know, just trend lines on a chart, but the way you draw them, the way they intersect with price is different than how most people draw them. Can you maybe talk about that a bit?
I'm not sure that I could ever explain exact. Jack is being very affectionate right now, by the way, just so you know, because just so people know, we're recording this after the market closed, and so usually this is the time when I take them out to the dog park and run around. So he's like, "Hello, why aren't we doing anything?" But if he bothers you, let me know. So he's a
We
good
love
boy.
dogs here. We're dog people.
Oh, cool. So okay. So if I tried to explain exactly how I draw my lines, I'm not sure that I could because I hate to say, but it is a little bit of an art form. But what I do look for is once I've drawn one of my lines, I try to move it around the chart and I try to see if it's reusable. So for
Okay.
me, the more reusable or the more that slope works, then the more useful the line is and the more likely it is to be successful for me. So what I try to do is I try to pick one or two slopes in both directions or more that work well for me. I try to just eyeball which ones are the best. And by that, I don't necessarily mean, okay, it went wick to wick, because I realize that I would never be a better computer than a computer is. So what I try to do is figure out what all of the computers that are looking at other computers are doing. So for me, it's not necessarily about the edges of the wicks connecting. It is whether or not price has closed inside of that slope. And so it's not perfect, but it's, I think, really good because it works so well for me. So I try to just take in all of the machinations that the computers are doing against themselves and come up with a slope that way.
Got it. There's a like a religious debate among some traders if you should draw lines wick to wick, like completely peripheral outside of price, or if you should let price intersect with it. I tend to agree with you, right? It's more of a best fit, right?
That's what I think. I mean, I also remember when I was first learning to chart, I would send my charts to people who I respected, and they would just tell me how terrible they were. So then, like, because like you said, I have people telling me that's the wrong way to chart all the time. But then I'm like, well, did I exactly get the bottom, and did I exactly get the top? I think so. So
Yeah.
no, I
Well,
mean, you just look at what works for different people and what gets results, right? I mean, my way of charting is definitely not for everyone, and
uh,
there's ways that work better for other people. I just do what works for me.
that's what a lot of people are missing when they first come into the markets, right? They try to follow other people's strategies and, try to borrow ideas from other people, and they don't take the time to discover what works for them.
Well, I remember at one point, when I first started trading, when things start going south, sometimes you get a little desperate. And then you're like, all right,
Yeah.
I've tried a bunch of things. I have not used any scientific system because I've gone all over the freaking place. So now somebody just tell me what the frick to do so I can stop losing money, right? And that's when they sort of look to, okay, just give me what you do. But unfortunately, it's not that easy. So there are people that dedicate themselves to educating other traders. I know my YouTubes have people have really liked them because I do share tips and tricks, and I just try to get people to think on their own. The same thing with a Substack that I just started, but it really is about sort of knowing what works for you, but then also being able to take in what works for other people. I mean, I don't use fibs, but a lot of times people who do will tell me when a fib intersects with one of my lines. And so that's really good for me to know, and so I mean,
confirmation.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine the audacity that some people have when they tell other people that the way they're doing something is wrong.
Yeah,
If that's to me is so silly. That's like those questions in school where they said, "What do you think the author meant?" And so I would answer what I thought the author meant, and then I wouldn't get 100% on it. And I'm like, "Excuse me, I answered exactly what I thought the author
yeah,
meant. Maybe that wasn't what the author meant, but I'm telling you what I thought. So you
that's
can't
what you
give me
asked.
less than 100%." And it's
You
the
know,
same thing with trading. I mean, it's there's no wrong way as long as something is working for somebody. I'm not critical at all. Why would I do that?
I totally agree. I did an experiment a long time ago, very early days of Trendspider, where we showed the same chart to 100 different traders and just asked them to give us like a 2 sentence opinion on it. And we had like 95 completely different opinions, right? It was wild. And half of them were right, half of them were wrong, right? You just at the onset you don't know who's right or wrong, right?
No,
So
no, and it's just all based, and it's all also a lot of it is experience as well. Having stared at many different charts and seeing how they turn out. There's statistics involved, sure, and you can look at other people's statistics for different formations. But I know personally how many times a bull flag or a bear flag has failed, and when I've gone off my own you know data. So everybody has their own take on it, and so everybody's wrong sometimes, and it's ridiculous to not be wrong. You just have to know how to manage when you're wrong.
I
That's
agree. And when people talk about bull flags, failure rates, and things like that, time horizon plays a big part in that, right? Because if you're a short-term scalper, it may have popped enough time for you to get out,
yeah.
right? You may have been right, and they may have been right at the same time, because you're looking at it over different periods of time.
Exactly. I mean, there's so much, especially now. There's so much volatility that really, depending on what time frame you're trading, it just there's no wrong there as long as you know when what your conditions are for exiting the trade. There's no wrong way, whether or not you win or lose. There's no wrong way to do it.
I agree. So curious, how do you find new trades? Like how do you come up with symbols, opportunities? What's your system?
So I watch a core group of things every week religiously. I watch ES, I watch NQ, small caps. I watch some three cryptos very closely, and I watch gold miners, gold, silver, oil stocks, oil, natural gas. So those are and coffee. Those are the main things that I really focus on every week. But and so usually there's at least one or two. I'm not going to say easy, but I'm going to say high probability things that I look at from week to week. I mean, because sometimes one of those things will just chop indefinitely, and I may have a good idea of whether to go up or down, but I'm not necessarily always looking for chop. I want something that's going to
You want trending?
hopefully be trending. So I'm sort of always on the lookout there for when things hit support or resistance of mine, and that's how I take a lot of new trades. But then as far as equities go, again, a lot of smart people. I'm so blessed to have. I never wanted a lot of followers because I would rather have quality over quantity. But I'm so blessed in that I do have amazing, smart followers, and a lot of them will make me aware of something. And if I'm not paying attention to them, not that I'm trying to ignore them, but there's just a lot of sensory overload sometimes
Oh
with a
yeah.
lot of followers. But if they make a business case for me about something, I'll take a look at it, and then that's how I find a lot of my equity trades is by just paying attention to other people and then charting it for myself.
That's the beauty of FinTwits, right? It's that community where people are sharing ideas, right? And
Right.
and looking for feedback on them. Like I've posted things where people have been like, "That's really dumb, Dan." Right? Like you're wrong, and it's nice to have, because the anonymity of the internet, people are willing to tell you what they really think. So
Sometimes, yeah.
yeah,
Sometimes a lot more than just what they think. But yes.
yes. So question, what's your approach to managing risk? Do you use hard stops? At what point do you say I'm wrong and get out?
It depends. If I am counter trending a larger time frame, usually what I'll do is I'll scale in. So I'll start pretty small,
Okay.
and then I'll just add. Uh, Usually I'll have planned out when I add based on when my stop would have been from when I was a new trader. Because, have you ever done like just as soon as you hit your stop, the thing will reverse? Like,
Yes.
what in the world? So I call that my superpower
Okay.
because I figure out what my stop would be beforehand. And then that's when I'll add in the majority of the trade. And then it usually, not yeah, it does. It usually works out for me that way. But so that's one way and then I'll set a stop after that. So I'll say, okay, 1/3 here, 2/3 here. But then if it goes down here after I'm full position, so that's one way.
Okay.
And then sometimes if I am just scalping or whatever, then I'll do a hard stop. But um, I tend to, because of the way that my trend lines work, I tend to either wait for the end of the day or the end of the week or the end of the hour before I will stop out of something, because I know that my lines are basically saying to me that it's a high probability that it will obey the lines, but I might have to give it a little more time. So sometimes I do a time based stop, unless it gets really,
Yeah.
horrible or something like that. But sometimes I'll do a time based stop over an amount.
I love that you say that. I have this same rule. I don't know if it's a rule for you, but I won't. I'll set a stop, but I will usually wait till the end of the day, right, before I take it, even if it makes the loss worse, because
Yeah.
things come back so often.
So often. And, especially like I said, if I were to choose a number, that would be the number it would turn around on.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll say, you know what, this is painful, but I knew it might be painful. So that's how I scaled in, and then I'll wait.
Isn't it interesting how people seem to intuitively know this? Like you see people joke about this all the time on Twitter, right? Oh, I sold. Of course it took off now, right? Like, oh, I bought in. Of course it went down. Like they seem to know this, but not use this information.
I know. And it's like how it's a superpower, but you have to have a lot of confidence in yourself, in knowing that, right? Because it's almost like having so much confidence to know that you don't know when it'll happen. You sort of have to just let it go. In fact, I think sometimes the smarter you are and the more smart you try to get with the market, the more it just takes you out. You just have to be real dumb and just wait sometimes. I mean, yeah, I use it for my advantage for sure.
Smart.
And yeah.
I saw this meme a while ago. It was a video. It was like the two types of traders, right? And it was one guy doing a lot of analytical work, and like a very complex, multifaceted plan. Another guy's like, the airport's empty. Maybe one day the airport will be full. I'll buy some airplane stock, right? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously, who wanted that scenario, right?
Right.
It's kind of funny.
That's That's funny and that's accurate. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, like, sometimes people misjudge me because I like to, use humor, and I'm not like typical of a lot of people. I make jokes, but I mean, it doesn't matter to me. All that matters to me is my account balance.
Yep.
So, like, I don't, they can underestimate me all they want. It doesn't hurt me, it doesn't help me, but I don't care.
So what's your perfect setup? Ooh, the dog's back.
Sorry.
Uh, Curious, how would you describe like your dream trade, the perfect setup, right? What would that look like?
Well, for me, I do. I think I'm probably most well known for sort of bottom catching or top calling. Hold on just a second. Jack, off, off. You gotta just focus, buddy. You gotta have patience. Gotta be a trader. Have patience. But my perfect setup is having patience actually, and waiting for something to hit one of my lines. Sometimes I don't have patience, and I know I don't have patience. So what I'll do is I'll buy like a very small amount of something just to satisfy my own FOMO. but then wait to add, just in case, because I'm like, yeah, this is going to go up immediately. I can't wait for it to go to this level, and then I'll see that, oh, it didn't. I'm happy I didn't put a lot of money in that.
Yeah.
But so my dream setup is sort of patiently waiting until something hits one of my lines, and then just taking it there, and then having it go to the moon.
Do you do you always scale in? Is that like a standard operating procedure? And then on
When
the flip side, do you scale out too?
I do, yes, for
Okay.
sure. I scale out for sure. It's like I was in the nat gas trade. It's gone crazy. But I scaled out of that, thankfully. Although I did scale out of almost all of it last week, sadly enough. But anyway, yeah, I'll scale out of something just so that I won't get FOMO.
Okay.
So that I usually take 1/3 at whatever percentage that I'm happy with, and then I set the next third to come off at resistance, and then if it comes back down, sometimes I'll add back the 2/3, and then manage it from there. But if it keeps going over resistance and doesn't even back test, then usually I'll just keep a third to go to the moon. So that was the third I had left in natural gas, was already mooning. So I was like, all right, well, if it comes back down, I'd like to add more, but I would like to also lock in profits. So that's what I usually do is I take off a third percent, a third resistance, sometimes add back if it comes back. Sometimes I'll add back if it's over resistance and comes back down to test resistance, and then go from there.
Do you ever average up, like add to a winner?
Yeah, I know a lot of people have, and I have before, but I have bad experiences with that in the past. Whenever I used to do that, especially when I started trading, it would go straight down. I don't know, like talking about superpowers, like now if I want to add to something, I'm like, especially if it hasn't back down a little bit, I'm like, maybe I should take some off instead.
Like
Because
recognizing your own FOMO?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, I have done that, but mostly I do try. Even if I'm averaging up, I try to wait until price comes back down to some line. Like not, I'm not. A lot of people are good momentum traders. I'm not one of them. So I just know that already, and I just think to myself, self, there are other trades out there. I don't need to just this one thing. There are other things that will also go my way, So I just try to curb it that way.
Makes sense. You've talked a lot about managing yourself, right? I'm just curious, how do you keep your mindset balanced? Like, if you're having a bad day, what do you do to adjust? Or do you have, some traders have a rule where it's like, if I lose twice in a row, I'm done for the whole day, right? Like, what's your approach to that?
So I have a set dollar amount. If I'm down for the day, I'll cut it. I'll
Okay.
cut it, and then I do try to just. So I'm very lucky. I live near the beach, so I'll just try to go on the beach and walk barefoot, ground myself, or I'll take the dogs out and just sort of enjoy nature. Just try to get my mind. It's hard because I think all of us are a little bit. I'm very laser intense focused all day. I can't look away usually. I mean,
Yeah.
I've gotten better. Even if I'm not trading, I still like to watch it. It's weird, but I'm super intense. So I just try to completely take myself away from that, and just go outside.
Do you ever find a need to like self balance when you're having a good day? Like, I know if I'm having a good day, I have to stop at some point and go take a breather because I'll start over trading, right?
Yeah,
I'll screw myself over and ruin a good thing.
yeah, no, the same thing. If I make a certain amount, I set trailing stops, and then that's it. I'm not going to mess with it.
Yeah.
I won't necessarily cut everything in that case because I'll be like, you know. But yeah, same deal there. I just try to get away. Like I'll be like, wow, I didn't expect that to work so well. That's nice. So I'll just set a stop and walk away.
Smart. What are some of the like big mistakes you made when you first started trading that took you a while to unlearn?
Okay, yeah. So I used to think that everything that went down would also go up.
Okay.
You know, like I would think that if something was performing really badly, that I should keep adding to that thing because eventually it's going to go up, right?
Yeah.
So definitely, I had to get rid of that whole mindset. I mean, and you hear, don't, and also not cutting winners, cutting losers. That's hard to do because I know, especially if you're new to the game, if you have profits in something, you're like, great, I'll take the profits in this thing. But taking the loss in this other thing, I don't know. Let me just hold on to that a little longer
It'll come
because,
back.
yeah, it'll come back. Instead, I'll take the profits from this thing that's doing great and I'll put it in this thing that's terrible. And then the thing keeps getting more terrible.
Yeah.
So that I think when people tell you that, you're like, oh, yeah, sure. But as far
Yeah.
as putting it into practice, it does take some time. And for me, it did. And it takes some skill
I think
too
the
to,
psychology is very tricky,
yeah,
right? I did that for a long time, and it's when you start talking about scaling in, right? These two things can be a trap together, right? Because you end up
yes.
continuously scaling in to something that is so cheap it can't go lower. But
Okay.
I guess one superpower, kind of like yours, I've learned is every time I find myself saying like, God, it just can't get cheaper, I stay away.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
because that means it's going to get cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, in fact, even when somebody replies to me about something, they're like, oh, this is a gimme. I'm like, oh, no. Is it? Because that means I have to really be careful about it now. Whereas if a lot of people tell me how wrong I am or how long I should wait, like when I was scaling into Tesla this past time, people are like, oh, it's going to be cheaper in a week or two. I'm like, oh, maybe. But I was actually relieved to hear people saying that to me because I'm like, oh, okay, this might have a shot. Yeah.
No, there's a I forget the name of this website. There's a website that tracks the sentiment of people talking about stocks on Twitter, right? And plots them on a chart. It's really interesting to look at because right when everybody's like talking bullish is usually at the top, right? And
Right.
people start to panic usually at the bottom, right? And if you can just somehow pay attention to what others in the market are thinking, you can probably just that's a strategy on its own, right?
And that's, yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
I do sometimes use that, although my followers are pretty smart, but I can see other people on Twitter. I can definitely see when everybody's bullish or bearish on something for sure.
They
And
create
but
crowded
what freaks me
trades.
out the most is when it's 50-50, because then I was like, oh no, I don't know what's going to happen.
Now we got a real market.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what's your most memorable, maybe most painful losing trade? Which is the one that stung the worst?
Um, Well, I've lost a lot of trades for sure, but I don't consider them stinging only
Okay.
because I feel like if as long as I learn something from it and I don't repeat the same mistake, then I'll try to be great. I try to adapt an attitude of gratitude towards even when I lose money because as long as I understand how I lost and why I lost and I believe that it's not repeatable, then that. So I will say the one that stung the worst is just in the beginning, when I was just learning to trade. And again, it was, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it. It was an oil equity. Gosh, I even made fun of myself for trading it. It begins with a C, I think. I don't. Oh,
Oh God.
okay. It's not in
Chevron?
business anymore.
Okay.
Anyway, I kept adding to it because especially when it got super cheap, I just kept thinking, gosh, this is a gimme. And then when I went on StockTwits and I looked at it and I saw all this bullishness, I knew at that point I was screwed. But it also helped me feel better. So I was looking for things to make me feel better. um, I'll have to remember it and tell you what it was, but
Okay.
it was, I blocked it out. See, I block out the negative things if I can, but I remember I just added and added and added to it till finally I just took the L, and then of
Yeah.
course it went up. a
Yeah.
little bit after that, and I thought, okay, but I just refused to buy back in, and then eventually it just went out of business. So I was happy.
So I did this. I had Facebook shares almost at IPO price, and I sold them for a loss. So
Oh, geez. Oh,
yeah, so I think we've all done it. What about your most memorable, like the trader you're most proud of? Is there something that you were just like, wow, I played this perfectly?
you know what? So when I first joined Twitter, the only thing I really talked about at all was gold and gold miners because, and it wasn't that I didn't trade other things, I traded other things, but I just felt like gold was being underrepresented because it had been in such a range for so long that nobody wanted to talk about it anymore because it was just boring. I don't know if it was boring to people, but I was a I've never been. I don't consider myself a gold bug, but I was a gold bull, and it was 1100 or so when I think when I joined. But I was just every day I would talk about gold because I knew it was due for a huge breakout, and I wanted to be on top of it. So I called the gold breakout at 1285, and I said, "Hey, it's been here before, sure, but this is it. This is huge. This is it. This is a big freaking deal." And I went super duper nuclear heavy on it. And actually, that's when I got a lot of followers because people are like, "Oh my gosh!" And because also somebody who was really popular, I won't say who, but the reason they became popular is they would quote tweet other traders what they figured was losing trades, and then say how wrong it was, and that how gold was stuck in a 2016 range. And a lot of his followers followed me after that because he was super wrong,
Yeah,
and I wasn't. So that's probably I was so proud of myself because it also made me doubt myself, because he had 20,000 followers and I think I had like 1,600 or something. I mean, I was a small potatoes, but I got several thousand followers from that. I think he didn't intend it, but yeah, so that's probably the one I'm most proud of because even though I'm very sensitive and it traumatized me and people were making fun of me for it, um, it worked out.
I think you proved yourself there.
Yeah, that was, oh,
And the thing is, it always bugs me when people rag on others' ideas because, like, what's your idea, right?
I
Like,
would,
what are you putting
right.
out there,
Are you
right?
like, and I even asked him, I was like, oh, are you short? I wanted to get my receipts. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Because I was very confident about this because I wanted it on, no, I'm not, and he didn't even say whether or not he was short or not, but he wouldn't even tell me what his position was. So it's like, I would have respect for you if you told me you were in an opposite position and then you lost or and then you won. I'll respect you for that. But
yeah,
if you're just going to rag on me for my position without telling me what your plan is, no. I don't again, I'm not critical of other people. I'm very critical of myself, but I would never do that to someone else.
yeah. It takes a certain amount of courage to put yourself out there, right? And
I
be
know.
openly wrong, right? I'm openly wrong all the time. It stings.
It
Uh,
stings, but I mean, as long as
that's
you,
life.
like I said, as long as you learn, I try to just say, okay, well, that was wrong. Here's why it was wrong. Or you know what? A certain percentage is just wrong no matter what. Maybe I didn't do anything wrong, but the trade was, the trade went south and that's okay.
Yeah,
As long as the majority or the big bets go north, we're all good.
right on. So I'm curious. Do you have any tricks that you use during the day? Like one I use is I keep my P&L minimized. Right, I don't look at the P&L if I'm trading, right? Because I just want to stick to the process. Is there anything like that you do?
I would just say that I don't listen to financial news.
Okay.
So I just watch like history documentaries, or I used to watch trash television, but it's a lot of reruns. I've seen them all.
Okay.
So now I just watch, I just try to watch something that's unrelated. And a lot of times I know what time the events are that matter so that I can pay attention to price action. But like a lot of times I don't even know what the interest rate decision was. I don't even care. Do you know what I mean? All I care is what's happening to price. I don't care if it's 25 or 50. I don't care if it's 3,000. I just want to make sure that I'm paying attention to price action at that time. So,
Yep.
because otherwise you get, I start to think, and whenever I think something, that's when everything is not good.
Yeah. That's interesting. Tune the news out, which I guess makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I never know what's happening. Sometimes I'll ask like, "Oh, did something just something happen?" I can see something. I follow the a lot of those news accounts on Twitter, just so I know what's happening. Generally speaking, but a lot of times I don't necessarily care about what it is. I care about when it is.
Yeah, and the popular narrative isn't always right. People are blaming stuff on the war in Ukraine and Russia when it really has to do with a Fed decision, right? People are always looking for something to explain what's happening.
Did you used to do Mad Libs when you were a kid? I don't think they have that anymore. Do you
No.
know what I'm talking about? It's like this a story, and it has these blanks that you fill in with a verb or a noun or what an adjective, and so you don't even look at the story. You just write down the words, and then you read the story to see if it makes any sense. And I feel like that's what a lot of finance writers do. I feel like they're just making stuff up because if they knew why something was and how it affected price action, then they would be able to forward thinking tell us what will happen and not just what did happen and why it happened. They would say because of this at the beginning of the day. They should say because of this, price action will do that. But instead, they wait till the end of the day and they say because of this price action, here's why it happened. So it doesn't even make sense. And whenever anybody asks me, well, why is gold going up or why is this happening, I don't know, and I don't care.
Yeah, the price tells you everything you need to know.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm curious, what inspired you to start sharing trades on Twitter?
So I used to belong to sort of a group chat and or Discord or whatever it was, and but I was coming into my own as a trader, and I was just getting too influenced by people who I knew. So I just wanted to go on Twitter and just say what I was doing, well, getting feedback from people, but not trying to become too influenced. For me, it was about becoming more independent, away from that group, and also having confidence in myself because I knew that I was right a lot, and I would only second guess myself if I continued listening to their conversation of why I was incorrect. Do you know what I mean? So I
I do.
just wanted to get away from that and try to have more confidence.
Yeah, when you hear something enough times, you start to believe it, even if you don't want to.
Right, right. And
Yeah,
then you're like, wow, I was right about that all along. But
like
and it's
damn
still
you
my
guys.
fault for believing them. You know what? It's always your own personal responsibility. But I was like, I need to tune that out because otherwise I the worst thing is trading off of someone else's conviction and not your own.
Yeah, yeah. That you should quote that and print it on T-shirts. That's good advice.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what other advice would you have for like a new trader who just started in a few years ago and is only now starting to experience real volatility for the first time? Like how should they cope? What should they do?
Um well, I mean, you know, it's hard to say because when I first started trading, we it was just very boring compared to how it is now too. But it was still hard. I thought. I would just say that if you are losing money and the way that you're dealing with that is by adding more money to the pile, trying to turn it around because you think that you're going to get it any day now, or you think you're close, that um, that I would have saved myself a lot of money had I listened to the people that said that it's time to dial it down. And instead of trying to make back the money that you've lost, instead just try and follow rules and consider that a win when you follow your rules. And then, amp it up from there. But it's really hard to hear that, I think, for a lot of people. So,
Yeah.
that would be my best advice, though, is just to, if you are losing money, even though you think you might stop losing money anytime now, to dial it back. It's sort of like being at the blackjack table too. I mean, like, if you're on a winning streak, stay on your winning streak. But if you start a losing streak, then go to the $2 tables or whatever. You don't have to stay at the $50. You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
your losing streak ends, and then you go back to the
Yeah.
big table. Because I definitely tend to go in streaks. I think a lot of people do, because once you get into your rhythm and you're like, all right, this is great. And so I just keep a record. So if I start to get into a little bit of a streak, I dial it down. But I think that's really hard to do at the beginning, especially if you're losing money, to dial it down, because the psychology is that you can, remember this one great win. You want that feeling again. It's like a druggie. You want that
Mm-hmm.
feeling again.
Adrenaline.
Um, and you don't want to trade smaller because of that. But if you start trading smaller and then you start winning again, then you dial it back up, and then you get that feeling again. But you can't get it from, you know,
Yeah.
losing. I don't think.
I think people chase that adrenaline, right?
Yeah,
They want to, like you said, they want to feel that win again, right? And it's when they make a lot of their worst decisions.
yeah. And lucky for me, even if I like today I had a really good day. Yesterday I had a really good day, but now it's like when I have a really good day, unfortunately, I don't feel it anymore. Like, I get like woohoo, but I don't feel like that rush anymore. Uh, I feel, if I lose money, I feel a lot worse than even if I lose a small amount of money, feel a lot worse than if I make money now. It's like I just don't have that rush anymore, which I think is probably good because I'm not chasing anything, but it's kind of sad too, in a way.
I think it comes of being seasoned, right?
Uh,
I'm the same way. To me, it's like, what am I going to celebrate? Like, I did my job, I followed my process, right? Like, that's the bare minimum of what I should
right.
do as a trader, right? I should follow my process. Problem is, a lot of traders either don't have a process to follow, or they do and they don't follow it, right? Like,
Yeah.
which I think causes them to run into problems. So okay, well, we are running low on time, so I'm going to end. I got one last question for you, kind of open ended. What would be the best advice, few words that you'd give someone brand new, just wants to start trading right now? They don't even have a brokerage account. What would you tell them?
I would say to start small
Okay.
and to try to be consistent more than try to find winners, because the thing that'll keep you in this game the longest amount of time, and the thing that'll make you the most amount of money, isn't finding uh, the home run, necessarily the home run penny stock that's going to go from 3 cents to $5. It's that if you can consistently identify opportunities and consistently get into things at good entries, then that's the thing that'll keep you in the game. That's the thing that'll make you the most amount of money, compounding your winnings versus finding that one particular thing that may be a home run. It's super hard to identify. So just consistency is key.
That's awesome. Thank you. That's really valuable advice. I think a lot of new traders need to hear that over and over again.
I know I did when I was new trader. Like I
Me
said,
too.
I mean, yeah, I definitely, I did not listen to. I thought I was smarter than the average bear, and I think that actually got me into a lot of trouble. Whether or not I was wrong about that or right about that, it still got me into a lot of trouble. So I wish I had listened to other people
Yeah,
that I knew were smart.
I'm with you there. Well, Julia, thank you so much for coming on. I could talk to you all day. So I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me on, Dan. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry I was a little introverted and I was difficult to get in touch with. I'm sorry.
No,
I
you're
hope.
awesome.
Thank
I'd love
you.
to have you on again. For those watching, we're going to have some links in the description to Julia's YouTube, her Substack, her Twitter. Will all be there in case you want to get to know her a little bit more. Julie, thanks again.
Thank you so much, Dan. And thanks, everybody. See you on the interwebs.